Well, if you were a Badger fan 20 years ago, you needed coffee.
Yes.
You need a lot of coffee because you were preparing to stay up into the wee hours of the morning.
But for some of you, it probably feels like yesterday. Wisconsin was facing Michigan State in a huge game in Tokyo, Japan, of all places. And sports director Jay Wilson is here with what was at stake.
I was working at Channel 27 at the time. We couldn't afford to go. So.
And you were in lacrosse, right?
Right, I was at Channel 8 in lacrosse. WKBT up there.
Well, we were a lot younger then, weren't we?
Yes, we were, 20 years.
Yeah, well, if the Badgers were to beat the Spartans, Wisconsin would go to the Rose Bowl for the first time in a generation. We caught up with some of the people that were at the so-called Coca-Cola Bowl, a game that kicked off just before midnight Madison time. The coach, a key player, the band director, and the only Madison TV crew to make the journey halfway around the world.
Well, back at that time, a group in Japan were putting together and sponsoring that game, and they approached us about playing a game there. You know, our guys had worked so hard. You know, we started from scratch. I thought it'd be a good reward for them. I was looking at it much like a bowl game. I went to Pat and asked for permission to move a home game. Now the trouble was finding someone that would go along with it. George Perlis and I had a great relationship. I asked George if he would move a game at midseason, play the last game of the year, and go over to Japan.
Who would have thought the way the season matriculated that the game would have meant for the right to go to the Rose Bowl?
Go Big Red!
It was really surreal. The whole season, as I look back on it, seems like a surreal season.
We bussed to Chicago. We were on the same plane as Michigan State's players.
Michigan State band, our team, our band, all on the same plane.
We sat with the band.
Yeah.
In the very back.
Probably the biggest plane I'll ever ride on my entire life.
I always try to give the players an edge. So with talking with some of our professors on campus, we have some that work with astronauts. They showed me how we could turn back the body clock 2 hours a day by using sunglasses and light and dark. And so we went through this whole process. We bought sunglasses for the kids. We changed their daily routine every day.
Coaches did a great job for us and getting us prepared for that time change.
We flew and stayed up the entire flight. And when we got there, I said it'll be midnight Tokyo time, and when we get up in the morning, we'll be right on their schedule, and Michigan State doesn't know anything about that. So we'll get 3 or 4 days on them right there.
And then really from there, it was a matter of taking care of business. We went there for a reason, and a lot was riding on the line, obviously, for all of us.
It was kind of neat because there were other affiliates in the state that were getting our stories. And
We were the only television station in the state to go to this. So it was a big deal.
It was. Can you tell me how do we get to the Coca-Cola Bowl?
コカ・コーラボールにはどういうふうに行ったらいいんでしょうか。コカ・コーラボール。I'm sorry.
We had an interpreter who was invaluable.
Coca-Cola?
コカ・コーラボール。
ボールって何?
The bowl, not the drink. Coca-Cola Bowl.
フットボールか。アメリカンフットボール。
He says he's never been there, so he doesn't know how to get there.
I was a senior that year, played free safety, wore number 37. And Jim Miller, who was their quarterback, overthrew their tight end and happened to land right into my lap and returned that. I think a play or two later, Terrell Fletcher scored a touchdown, about a 4-yard touchdown run.
I remember us just being much better than they were and much better prepared than they were. We were a better football team.
I think the final was 41-20, and to his credit, they did beat them like a yard dog, as they say.
Here you go.
The team knew that one camera was the conduit back home. And my camera was absolutely the center of attention for this whole football team. And they were just like on top of me. Baby, we're going to the Rose Bowl, we're going to the Rose Bowl. And roses in their teeth, and they were just going wild. It was just the most magical moment. It was just unbelievable.
I mean, all the things that they had gone through that year, you know, you had the crush of the Michigan game, the disappointment prior to the Michigan game when they lost at Minnesota. Everybody, oh, there goes the Rose Bowl dream. It's gone. And then the next week they beat Michigan. Then they tied Ohio State, and everybody gnashing at their teeth. Oh, my gosh, they're not going to get to the Rose Bowl. And then they go down to Illinois, and they just beat them bad. And it's like, and then everything fell into place. And then they have a week off, and then we're going to Tokyo to go to the Rose Bowl. It's like, I mean, seriously, I've got chills just right now, just thinking back 20 years ago.
Oh, it's amazing. I couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, aside from getting married, my own kids, that's right up there.
It was the best time. It was the best time I've ever had because it was everybody was so spirited by it.
I think each and every game that we played throughout the course of that season got bigger and bigger. We kept winning, and so they got bigger naturally. But this one, obviously, with the granddaddy on the line, our first time there in 31 years, there was an expectation from all of us that we needed to prepare well, prepare hard.
They were the team that turned this whole athletic program around. They were the ones that filled the stadium. Had we not filled the stadium and built a solid program there and sustained it, we don't have all the new facilities that we have today. The athletic department would not be in the same position it's in today. And so I gave them a lot of credit for being the guys that got it done for this athletic department.
The game ended well past 2 in the morning, and producer Steve Kane remembers going outside at halftime, meeting some neighbors, and they all got together and took a break. And almost all the houses on his street had the lights on, watching the game. And I want to thank Mike Van Susteren, our great photographer, for putting it all together.
And sharing so many great stories. This is one of Mike's souvenirs that he's had these 20 years from Tokyo, from the game. And you know, it's interesting. We've been to the Rose Bowl so often in recent years that today, I don't know, you never really take it for granted, but some people may not realize it's such a big deal, but back then
I think
it was.
that third Rose Bowl, people were taking it for granted around here a little bit.
Do you?
Because that was such a unique situation because it had been 31 years since.
Yeah.
And Van Stout still speaks a language that not everybody understands.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, is it fun to go down memory lane?
Yeah,
it
is.
really is. Thank you, Jay.
You bet.